Welcome back to part 24 of the OC story, the story where you guys vote for what you want to happen next, and I keep turning it into these parts of the story, which is still being turned into an actual novel, which is probably going to take a different direction depending on a few things you guys vote on in the upcoming episodes. And I have decided I will probably be wrapping this series up in the next 10 or so, mostly because I've got a rough idea of where some of the characters might be going, and again, depending on you guys' votes and things, I just think we may be slowly coming towards the end. But again, it's entirely up to you guys. We could be still here a year from now, and you know what? I wouldn't mind either way. Also, fun fact, the novel now has an official working title, which is quite exciting. I am considering telling you that. Let me know if you want it in the comments down below. All right, let's carry on with where we left off. So, Darrow and Erasmus had made a plan with Tinny. They were going to leave the palace forever after dinner. Tinny wanted one last moment of evening with her family all together. Her mother was there, her father. They were watching Cholly the jester perform, the king, the rest of the family was there, and her younger brother as well. However, something interesting happened at dinner. Eri had just about given up and decided he didn't anymore care about who was truly responsible for organising the hit on his brothers and his father and himself. However, a new piece of evidence, a new piece of the puzzle slotted into their vision as they were watching and listening to this dinner time. A man called Ferdinand Niss was there, and suddenly they started putting pieces together and thinking Ferdinand Niss could be Fer Niss, the name they were given of the man supposedly who organised the hit. Darrow and Erasmus stood quietly together, pressed against the wall, watching as Syson left the room slowly. His wife and Tinny looked after him, but then carried on with their meals. Tinny was glancing around nervously, but trying to still hold on to her mother's hand and entertain her little brother by moving her cutlery around and showing him different ways to hold his food. Eri and Darrow had a quick, whispered conversation. Eri was looking toward Ferdinand Niss, and he whispered, "But why would the Duke want his daughter's husband, the king, dead? Sure, she was his second wife, his essentially mistress, even though they were married, but she still had great standing, and so do they still. So does her family. Still, they sit at the royal table, they have rooms and land and money. Could he be against the marriage still, somehow? I never got the impression he was against it to begin with. He always struck me as, well, rather power-hungry, rather over-encouraging of it, if anything. Could he be opposed to the joining of the two countries?" Darrow was scratching his chin. Did he think his daughter would get the crown with all the princes dead? Like she could be queen or something? Well, Erasmus thought about this idea. I suppose temporarily she would have been, if all of us had been dead. Philly isn't old enough to take over just yet. She would have had to have been queen until he turned 21. Who's Philly? Philly is the now king's only child, and he does not come of age for another 3 or 4 years. Maybe that's it then. 4 years, you can do a lot, even if you're just, the dad of the new queen who's only queen because her husband's dead. Man, royalty's confusing. Yes, I suppose you're right. 4 years. It's a long time. But to have killed us all for that, it seems a little extreme, doesn't it? Well, Darrow was closing his eyes, thinking, desperation can make folks crack, make them do insane things, things you'd never thought you'd be capable of. But, it's desperation. It can get you there. Eri swallowed that piece of information down, realizing he too had got to a point of desperation where he'd been willing to do almost anything to not have to live this life anymore. He nodded and squeezed Darrow's hand. Darrow, I want to follow Syson. I want to see what my brother's up to. Will you stay here? Keep an eye on Tinny and Ferdinand. Yeah, of course. You got one of my blades? I have two. Brilliant. You know how to use them. You remember everything I taught you? Yes. And if anything happens, You're cool. I'll come running. Thank you. And if I'm taking too long, I'll come find you anyway. All right. I will see you back here or down by the kitchen exit. All right. Be careful. Promise me? I promise. Erasmus turned and tiptoed quietly then down the corridor, following the middle prince. Stop! Eri heard his brother before he saw him, and gently, quietly peeked out from around the next corner. He watched as Syson strode up to the two guards frog-marching Cholly, and motioned for them to stand still. Then he punched the jester square in the face. The man coughed, blood pooling from his nose. But somehow the jester smiled. It was strange, gnarled and hurt through all the paint and makeup. But Eri heard him, and he said, "You know, then." Syson growled. "All her life I've known. Could have had me in the cells a decade ago. Why didn't you?" "Because you could not watch me with them from the dungeons." Cholly struggled in the guard's grip. "Sick bastard!" Syson leaned in closer, lips at Cholly's ear. "Her name is mine. Her ring matches mine. Her bed is mine. And if our new king allows you back into our court, then you can watch her bear me more children. Mine." Cholly lunged for Syson, but the guards dragged him back. Syson smirked, straightening up. "Rot knowing you got a taste, but nothing more. Jolly Cholly jester." He straightened his robes, adjusting the ring on his hand that had imprinted squarely into the jester's nose. "Take him away." He waved a hand, and then returned to the dining hall. Erasmus stood staring for a long moment, watching the jester as he disappeared round the corner and down the stairs towards the dungeons, still held by the two guards. Then he went back to Darrow and told him what he'd seen. The assassin was more than ready to get the hell out of Dodge immediately. He was half prepared to cause some sort of scene, grab Tinny and just run. But Erasmus made him wait. They watched Tinny. They watched her toying with her dessert as it was served. And then they saw her slip quietly away from the table. Syson had returned, and Tinny's mother was furiously arguing with him in hushed voices, and Tinny just slipped away, unnoticed, unseen. The two darted to follow her and nearly collided in the next hallway around the corner. She took her bag from them without a word, and then said, "I want to see Cholly before we go. Can we, please?" They agree without hesitation. Of course they do. Inwardly, both Eri and Darrow were quietly starting to panic. Both of them shot each other sideways glances. They shouldn't go down to that dungeon, not when those two guards could notice any moment that the other prisoners were not there. They were both mentally scanning the dungeon, thinking of all those empty cells. Where would they put them? If they went anywhere near that empty cell, they would know at once. Hopefully, they just wanted it over and done with quickly. But, of course, fate could not be that kind to them. As soon as they headed towards the steps down into the dungeons, they heard shouting voices, the two guards crashing and clanging all the way back up the stairs, shouting about how the assassins had escaped, the prisoners were gone. They hide until the two have run past them and hurry down into the dungeon. Erasmus squeezes Tinny's hand, and Darrow pats her shoulder as they see Cholly in his cell before them when they land on the bottom step. "We'd give you all the time in the world if we could, but Tinny, we've got to go. We've got to go now. Make this quick, all right?" "I will. Thank you." Tinny rushes forwards towards Cholly in the cell. The others hang back, listening closely. Tinny grips at the bars and says, "Cholly, I'm running away. I want to say goodbye." Cholly looks at her. He wipes the blood from his nose and thanks every god he knows that she doesn't ask what happened. "Are you going to be all right?" she asks him. He reaches through the bars and hugs her closely. She reaches back and hugs him too. Through a cracking voice, the jester says, "I wish I could help you. I'm sorry." Tinny asks, "Can we break him out? Can we take him with us?" But Cholly shakes his head. He brushes a hand gently through her hair and says, "I couldn't leave this palace. Where will you go, Tinny girl? Tinny steps back just a little and looks behind her into the shadows. She beckons, pulling the other two closer, and they step into the light. She says, I've got 2 uncles now, and they're going to look after me, but I'll be looking after them a little bit too. That's Uncle Darrow. Darrow blinks, but then a smile breaks across his face. And, Tinny hesitates, looking at Eri, who decides and nods to her. As he steps further, closer into the light, Tinny adds, and Uncle Eri, you already know him. Erasmus kneels slightly to be beside Tinny, as Cholly looks between him and the girl. You know, Uncle Eri, Cholly, he's Prince Erasmus. And you don't need to worry, he's good. He's so good, please don't be scared. He's innocent, he didn't do—
I know.
You believe me?
I know he's innocent.
To Erasmus, Cholly grabs his hand and says firmly,
I was desperate, you understand? I was not—
Eri smiles softly.
I understand. I hold no blame at your door.
None.
I see now. I understand. You swear to me you'll take care of her. You'll give her the best life you can make. Give her everything I couldn't.
Eri understands something. He's pieced it slowly together in the back of his mind.
I will. You could come with us.
No. Tinny cries out, But Cholly, why?
I couldn't leave your mother here alone, Tinny.
There's a commotion on the upper floors and it grows louder and louder. Shouts and running guards, they all fall silent. But the guards are running towards the exits, looking for any way the prisoners might have escaped. We gotta go. We gotta go now. Darrow picks up all their bags and gets ready to run. Tinny, you want to switch into your slippers? Tinny hugs Cholly one more time through the bars and kisses his cheek. Go, he urges her. Then, someone comes flying, running, sprinting down the dungeon steps. They all freeze. Darrow, wide-eyed, grabs onto Eri and flings him into the shadows, taking Tinny as well and flinging her into Erasmus's arms. There's no time for him to follow them, and so he stands, bags in hand, directly in the patch of light, as the footsteps come down the last few steps and the woman turns, running right towards the cell where Cholly is pressed to the bars and Darrow is standing right in front. The assassin is ready and willing to fight, ready to lay down his life if necessary. His hands fly to the nearest daggers about his person as he stares, watching the woman come sprinting towards him. But she flies towards Cholly's cage, and she's screaming at him. What were you thinking? They could have you hanged for— But she stops when she sees Darrow.
Leah,
Cholly calls to her.
Leah, go back upstairs. Please, it's not safe. If they catch you with me.
But Methalia, Tinny's mother, is looking at the bags in Darrow's hands. Why do you have my daughter's satchel? She demands. Darrow swallows. Have you been thieving from my daughter? Where is she? What have you done to my daughter? Leah. Cholly reaches through the bars. It's not— What have you done? Mother, I'm all right. I'm here, look. Tinny bursts out of hiding, pulling Erasmus with her. Augustine! Methalia sinks to the floor and Tinny hugs her. I am sorry. Methalia whispers, tears springing from her eyes. I'm running, Mother. I don't want to be shipped away to Belgoth. I don't want to be married like you and Father. I want to be happy. Methalia pulls back, looking into her daughter's face. You cannot run, child. Oh, how I have dreamed about it, but you cannot. There is nowhere to go. They would not find you. And by yourself, there is nothing you—
She will not be by herself.
Erasmus steps forward.
Hello, Methalia. I am sorry to see you again like this, but—
You! Methalia hugs Tinny to her even tighter, staring at Erasmus. You think I will let you within a mile of my daughter?
She does have mixed feelings crossing her face, though, and several options and ideas seem to be racing through her mind, scenarios she didn't dare think about, let alone put into voice. He didn't do it, Leah, Cholly says, quiet now, from the cell. What? He didn't do it. Not any of it. He's back because they want to help. They're taking her away. They're going to make everything all right. And you trust this? Methalia softens, eyes on the jester. I do. And you can also. Please, Leah. Believe me one more time. This is our best chance for her now. Tinny nods. Uncle Eri's good, Mother. I promise. And I have to go. I'm going with him and Uncle Darrow. The assassin waved a hand awkwardly. They're going to be husbands. Darrow spluttered and Erasmus went bright pink. And they're going to make sure I'm all right. Please, Mother, let me go. Methalia looked from her daughter to Eri, to Darrow, and then to Cholly. Then, without another word, she nodded. She hugged Tinny tight to her and then released the girl. So they left, the three of them. They grabbed the bags and hurtled out of the dungeons, leaving Methalia and Cholly together. They left the palace through the secret hatchway near the kitchens. Nobody saw them. Nobody noticed. They got out of the city. And when they were far, far past the outskirts, they slowed down. Darrow, Erasmus notices, is running a little bit of a fever, but he insists he feels fine. His back aches, but he's fine. Everything's just a little bit blurry, but he's fine. And so they press on, leaving the capital far behind and deciding they will avoid the criminal underbelly for now as well. And now I have a question for you. So as always, you're going to get to vote in the comments down below, and what you're voting for this time is tell her or don't tell her. This is a question for Erasmus, really. So, as a lot of you, I expect, will have pieced together, Erasmus has pieced it together as well. Darrow, not so much, but Erasmus definitely. So, should Erasmus tell Tinny what he has pieced together? Now, if you haven't yet, then stop the video now and keep listening to the rest of the series and enjoy next week's episode, I guess, where you might find out things as well. But if you have worked it out and you would like confirmation on your theory, or you just want to know anyway, then keep listening. So if you'd like to leave it a surprise, then skip to the next video for now, and I will see you very soon. And for those of you who do want the spoilers, then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so what Erasmus has just pieced together is, well, two things, really, and both of them to do with Cholly the Jester. So, as a few of you in my DMs and the comments have been picking up the breadcrumbs I've been breadcrumbing, yes, it was Cholly who asked for the hit on Erasmus and his two older brothers and the king. And as Darrow had said earlier, it was out of desperation to save Tinny. The reason being, yet another thing that Erasmus has worked out, and that a few of you had suspicions on in the DMs on my Discord and in the comments on the videos as well, it is because Cholly is Tinny's real father. And it turns out that Syson, Tinny's father, also knew this as well. That was a fun little tidbit that I didn't realise until I was saying it, to be honest. So that was fun for me to find out as much as you guys. So yes, well done to those of you who picked up those breadcrumbs I was breadcrumbing. And if you didn't, then I'm glad you still enjoyed the story, I guess. So that is something that Erasmus now has. He could tell Tinny, he could tell her all of it, or he could tell her some of it, or he could tell her none of it. What do you guys think? I know that it might sound like an obvious, well, the truth is always better, but there is the argument that, bless her, she's been through a lot already, and that might make it worse. So what do you guys think? Should Erasmus tell Tinny, or should he leave it be, at least for the time being? Let me know in the comments down below. All right.
thank you for listening to this video once again, and yeah, I will see you in the next one. And if you haven't started watching the brand new series on my channel, which is Critical Role Meets the Traitors, then you are in for a treat. I am slowly turning that into more like these episodes, where I can do some arty bits and pieces and do a lot of voiceovers and terrible voices, so hopefully you will enjoy that one. Alright, thank you for paying attention to my content. As always, don't forget to hydrate yourselves. I love you all very much, and bye bye.